That's strangely close to Daniel Jones from the Giants. Daniel, is that you? Beat the Chiefs. Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, then I will start believing.
The crowd up. And so are this defense, and Kansas City won't snap the ball again. The Denver Broncos have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs.
David Montgomery on the Lions, former Bear, gonna make this his revenge game for sure. David Montgomery gets the touchdown that ices the game. No! And there's the flag. There's flags. Snap, hold, kick.
Denver wins! Let's go!
They open! No!
What happened? Oh, shit.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the only football podcast tonight. We're going to be recapping Championship Sunday, the Chiefs and the Ravens, the Lions and the 49ers. We're going to talk about everything that happened in those games. We're going to move on after that into Seattle Seahawks hiring their brand new head coach, a little familiar from that Ravens Chiefs game. Then we're going to go into some draft talk with the Broncos, possibly trading up with the Bears, with those guys back there. We'll see what happens. And then we're going to, of course, end it off with the Chives with Kyle. Let's get it. America is football.
Football is America. And if you don't like it, you can kiss your candy ass at the moment in time. I don't give a damn. Oh my God.
No!
You loved it.
It's 30 to 27.
No!
Chiefs win. Chiefs win 30 to 20. Woo!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Only Football Podcast. I'm Rick, and that's Kyle.
I'm Kyle, that's Rick.
And man, conference championship, it's in the past. Normally come out with one Monday, but as you'll be able to hear, Rick is dealing with a cold. He sounds awful.
Of course.
And I just got a new job. So a lot going on right now, but really excited about this episode because two teams were able to do enough to get the win, to get into the Super Bowl. And I personally think that this Super Bowl is going to be a good one. But we're not going to talk about the Super Bowl. But I just wanted to say really quick, man, the stuff that I'm seeing about the game being rigged, I haven't seen it as heavy in my entire life until this moment, this game happened. And I wrote a kind of a page, and it was something that I wanted to address on our next episode. And after I do that, I'm never talking about this again, but it is definitely going to be addressed in the next episode. We're not going to talk about that today because it does take away from, what the Chiefs rightfully earned, to say that, that there was something in their favor is to do a injustice. Thank you. Long day. But yeah, man, we're going to start with the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs because that game at home for the Ravens was awful. And I think I'm going to let you go first on this one, but I'm kind of happy that we recorded on Thursday because I've had a lot more time to kind of let this game sit in and settle in and kind of come up with, what an answer for what we saw. And I think the biggest question mark I have in this game is why did the Ravens, the best running football team in the league, why did they run it 6 times the entire day? That is 6. That is like a fireable amount. You're supposed to lean into your strengths. And we talked about it in the prior week where I was like, when you asked me about if Kyle Shanahan was going to get conservative, and I said, I hate when people don't lean into their strengths. This is a prime example of that. And basically the whole game, the Chiefs had, 4 linebackers, and they were like, we're going to put, our corners in on an island with the receivers. And if you can beat us with the receivers, then that's fine, but you're not going to run the football on us. And the Ravens weren't able to capitalize on the single coverage outside. I think it was a great game plan, but the Chiefs have seen this, or the Ravens have seen this game plan done by other teams, and they didn't have the same success as the Chiefs. It's not like the Ravens never saw a team stack the box. Anybody scouting for the Ravens knows that they're going to run the football. That's what they do best. So I don't really see like where things went wrong, like why they looked so unprepared, why they weren't able to do anything the entire game, and their defense did enough, man. 17 points. You got to score more than 17. You have to score more than 17. So I'll let you give your thoughts on it. It was a great game by the Chiefs, but that wasn't the Ravens' best game.
No, it wasn't. And honestly, like looking back on it, we talked about like, why is Lamar running the ball himself? Why are we seeing very, very little of Edwards? Like during the game, it's tough to kind of like see that in real time. But taking a step back, even during the game, we were still asking the question, why aren't they running the ball a bit? It wasn't one of our main concerns. It was more like, why can't the Ravens capitalize? Right? Like that was one of the other big questions that we had during the streaming of the game. But yeah, you're right. 100%, taking a step back, having a couple days to kind of process what happened with the Ravens. Why did why did the Ravens run the ball with their running backs 6 times, twice in the second half? Twice. You said it yourself.
Twice.
The Ravens were the best running team, and they were averaging, I saw this here, 160 yards per game. Lamar himself was averaging 50 yards per game over the season, rushing the ball. Why did you get away from that? Why did you go away from that? And you know what? I think the weirdest thing was too, at least one thing that I noticed while we were streaming the game was what we always point out is like, hey, that first series for a team coming out after kickoff, those first 15, 16, 17 plays are all scripted. They kind of go with whatever the plan is, because the offensive coordinator knows what the defense is doing. So they're going to generate a game plan around it, and it's usually going to get you down the field, maybe get you a field goal. The Ravens didn't do that. The Ravens went 3 and out in their first drive. And you and I were both just like watching that game. We're like, oh, that's a 3 and out. This was one of the best defenses with the best point differential in the entire season, and they just went 3 and out in the AFC Championship game at home. What is that, right? Like we were both so kind of like, and I feel like that was just the beginning of the end, really. Like that 3 and out to start the game off was the beginning of the end for the Ravens and Todd Monken's offense. And it was really just kind of like surprising in the worst way possible. And again, just going away from the run was ridiculous. And I've got the stats up here. I mean, they did rush for 81 yards, and the Chiefs only ran for 89, right? But they kept giving it to Pacheco. Pacheco had 24 attempts, had 68 yards and a touchdown, while the leading rusher for the Baltimore Ravens was Lamar with 54 yards. Gus Edwards was second with 3 attempts, 20 yards.
How does that happen?
Justice Hill, you had Dalvin Cook there. Like, why, as a running first team, run successful team, do you not run the ball against this Chiefs defense? Look, the Chiefs defense was giving up 115 yards per game over the season. And yes, their defense, we've talked about it all season, has been the best that this Chiefs team has seen in the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid era. But you still run the goddamn ball, man.
It's never not like they were up 40 points. It's exactly. Not a blowout.
This was a 1-score game. This was a 17-10 1-score game. Look at what happened on that 4th and 1 when Lamar Jackson was running it for a yard. He broke out for like a 20-yarder. And you're going to tell me you guys saw that and said, we're going to try to pass the ball. and we're going to try to get Lamar to make plays happen. I love Lamar. I think he's probably one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the league, but he struggled a lot. He struggled quite a bit in this game. And he did have a pretty decent game, right? Like 272 yards, a touchdown, and obviously that interception that pretty much killed it. But it just seemed like the entire offense, when you got to a certain point, whatever part of the field, the red zone at the 5, whatever, it just seemed to stall. It was like we got to this point and now we're just playing with our fucking thumbs. Like we don't know what to do at this point. And it's like, what are you guys doing? What I think too was one of the big reasons that this offense and this whole game happened the way it did is just the immaturity on the Ravens side. And Kyle and I mentioned that. We mentioned that, dude. It's like the defense getting into scuffles with Travis Kelce, the other linemen on special teams during punts, all this stuff. The offense taunting. Bullshit rule. I get it. Bullshit penalty, but you still don't taunt. Taunting.
You definitely don't taunt when you're losing.
Especially when you're losing. And you're reaching over the goal line at the 1. L'Jarius Sneed comes and punches it out of your arms, bam, back of the end zone or whatever it was, touchback. It's like those little things, man, that really changed the trajectory of this game and this offense for the Ravens. All seem to happen like almost at once, right? Like it was just like bad luck after bad luck after bad luck. And then you get into the fourth quarter and you manage a field goal. The defense, I will say, for all the bullshit that they got into, giving up penalties, giving up first downs, they cracked the fuck down on the Chiefs offense in the second half. 0 points they let up. But the offense just could not dig themselves out of the hole in the second half because they were only able to manage 3 points in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes left. That's not how you win football games. That is not how you do it. And I don't want to take any credit away from the Chiefs because that 3 and out in the beginning in the first quarter for the Chiefs defense was huge. Again, the Chiefs received the ball, went all the way down the field, scored a touchdown. Second drive, went all the way down the field, scored another touchdown. And yes, they got 3 points in the second quarter and were held scoreless in the second half, their offense. But their defense was just that good, man. It was their defense showed up unlike they showed up last year's Super Bowl. They actually showed up this time. They were able to shut everything down. So I don't want to take any credit away from the Chiefs, but my God, this was an absolute swing and a fucking miss by the Ravens. Todd Monken, his offense, decision-making, just acting the way they were acting on defense, causing penalties, fighting, giving in to what Travis Kelce and all these guys were doing. They were baiting them, and it worked. And that's gamesmanship. That's how you do it. That is how you do it. You come up against a team that you don't like in the warm-ups. You take the kicker's balls and you take the kicker's helmet and you throw them off to the side, and you're like, hey, bro, we're practicing here right now. And you get in each other's head. That is part of the game. That is part of the shit talking. That is part of the pushing around. But once you cross a line and you start to give in to every single little chirp on the other side of the ball and you start getting penalties, that's when it all starts to unfold. Again, credit to the defense for the Ravens to really bunker down and stop anything offensively for the Chiefs. The Chiefs punted like 7 times in this game. You don't see that from this Chiefs offense that much. Maybe this year compared to like the 6 other years, but you don't see that a lot. When you get those punts from a Chiefs team with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, you have to capitalize on that stuff. You have to. And there's no excuse for this Ravens team, man. It's just they sucked it up. And Lamar Jackson was trying his fucking hardest to get something going. But I mentioned it. There was like sometimes when he would break out for a run and I'd be like, oh, that 4th and 1, I was like, oh, this is going for a touchdown. And like completely slowed down. And it was like, wow, I don't see the speed anymore. But you mentioned it too. You're like, he put on a ton of weight for muscle. It's like, okay, that makes sense. But also it's like, he was the only one out there trying. He was the only one out there trying to make something out of this offense. Zay Flowers had an amazing game. He had over 100 yards. He had that fumble. He also had that taunting penalty. Again, bullshit call, but whatever. It is what it is. Mark Andrews only got the ball twice. Odell Beckham got 3 receptions. Isaiah Likely twice. He called for the ball on a really stupid call in the end zone, triple covered, that caused that interception. But Mark Andrews gets the ball twice. Bateman one catch. Like, what is this offense? What is this offense?
And Zay Flowers had like a 35-yard touchdown
grab.
That
and then
was
they were
a majority. Did he get over 100?
He got 115 yards in that touchdown. Yeah, with a long of 54 yards.
It didn't feel like it.
No, and that's the thing. It's like Zay Flowers is his performance was really good on paper, but the two biggest flops were that him reaching over for a touchdown, which I was talking to somebody, I forget who it was. I think it was a coworker, and he was like, his momentum probably would have gotten him in. His momentum would have gotten him in. So that and the taunting call.
They could have won the game if that.
They could have. They really could have at least tied it, because the way that defense was playing in the second half was outstanding. But again, you refuse to run the ball. You run it twice in the second half against this Chiefs defense that, yes, they can really shut down the run. But if Lamar Jackson on a 4th and 1 can break out for a 20+ yard run, Gus Edwards, Hill, one of these guys can break out for a 10, 12, 13 yard run. And all of a sudden you got a first down, new set of downs. Maybe you're in their side of the field. Now you can get the ball rolling a little bit more, man. Todd Monken really let this team down. I don't really see, like, if we are going like, who's to blame? I'm going Todd Monken all the way, man. I am really going Todd Monken all the way. Harbaugh had nothing to do with this. Like, he is the head coach. Yes, he's supposed, but like, your offensive coordinator does that. What are you supposed to do as a head coach? Hey, man, call better plays, maybe run the fucking ball. Yeah, probably. But that's not what they did.
I think it's tough because, and real quick, shout out to everybody that's tuning in right now. Real Fan Sports said the game plan was horrendous for the Ravens as well. Single digit runs. We mentioned that before you hopped in, that only 6 carries, 2 carries in the second half. That's horrendous. But I still think that as much as we're saying that the game plan was shit, you know what it's like to get in these games where you just can't run the football and you're getting 3 and outs. So you're not running that many plays. It's not because, you run the football effectively. It's like the rich get richer. You get first downs. You have more plays. Like, you can actually establish the run, but you need to get a first down. And I think the Ravens were running the football on first down. And then on second and third down, the Chiefs defense was doing a hell of a job. And then eventually you do start to get desperate, as the game goes on. And, if the Zay Flowers touchdown would have counted and the game was 17 apiece and it went into overtime, anything could have happened. And, we wouldn't be harping on it so hard. But it didn't work out that way. I thought that drive, that Zay Flowers drive was a solid one.
That was a good one.
That's
the only good one.
Yeah. And then that first one was, that first one was, I think, a 30-yarder. But yeah, man, the Chiefs defense just played a hell of a game. And the Ravens also, I agree. Like, you can't be the best running team and run it 6 times. But at some point, you need to make Kansas City change their defense by exposing these corners that are, single coverage. So the fact that those plays didn't happen, I'm gonna say, like, I never heard you say I blame Lamar. And I think when you watch the game, like, you could see that Lamar was trying, but it didn't look like Lamar was MVP. Like, I didn't see it. Like, he should, if you did that to Mahomes, he would just throw the ball, like, I just don't understand why Lamar wasn't, because Kansas City shouldn't have been able to sit in that defense the entire game. They should have, the plan was to sit in that defense until the Ravens prove that it's not a great idea. And the way that you do that is by making good passes, by receivers have to run good routes, get separation, all that. But, everybody's got dirt on their fingers. This isn't just Lamar. Zay Flowers did have a great game, but you mentioned it. 1 catch for Rashad Bateman. Like, how do you have one catch?
Yeah.
Like how are you not getting more catches? Like I don't have a word for it. Like
two for Mark Andrews. What?
2 for Mark Andrews. And
What?
like I don't know if that is part of the problem, because it seemed like they had such good chemistry with Isaiah Likely, and then Isaiah Likely. I mean, it's a little shift, right? I mean, it's the one. Yeah, if you said what's the variable, it's the addition of Mark Andrews, which doesn't necessarily make sense. But sometimes offenses get in a rhythm, and then like when Justin Jefferson got healthy, the Vikings started losing, but they were on a 5-game win streak with him hurt. It's not. It's just sometimes it throws off the rhythm of the offense. So I don't know if that played a role. But if it did, you would think that Mark Andrews would have had like 7 catches, like where it was like he was forcing in the ball. But yeah, man, I agree with you. The Chiefs get to move on to another Super Bowl, and it's crazy. I saw the numbers. They were doing a Tom Brady comparison. I think I might have taken a picture of it. It was no, I don't got it in here. It basically showed like how many conference championships they both were at, how many Super Bowls they've won. And Tom Brady has 3, but if Mahomes wins, he would have 3 as well. So they're like right. I mean, the beginning of Tom Brady's career. And it's funny because I'm watching Mahomes and I feel like, man, I've just never seen anybody like this. I'm willing to say like he's better than Tom Brady already. And then I remember that when Tom Brady first came into the league, I was 7. So I don't remember it as
exactly.
well.
Exactly. We can't put that into context because we weren't as into football as we are the last, I would probably say last 10 to 15 years, both of us combined, really, right? Like I would say that we really got into football in the middle of Brady's career, in the middle of him already being the GOAT, so I get you.
Yeah. I remember his first Super Bowl. But it's not like I remember it because I was a fanatic at that point. It was just, I liked football and I watched it when I could. Once I got a little bit older is when I started knowing the names of all the players and stuff like that. Yep. And of course, Tom Brady was the first on that list. But it's funny because they're looking at all this comparison stuff, and a lot of people are like, wow, where are we taking Mahomes' greatness, for granted? And it's funny when they put that chart up, I actually had more respect for Tom Brady because it's almost like, it just, this has already happened. This isn't the first time that a player's come in and
it's a trailblazer
on to 6 national champion or conference championships and won 3 Super Bowls. Tom Brady did it too. And it's a great reminder because sometimes we just, whatever the newest thing is what we like best. But man, Tom Brady was a GOAT, and he's going to be calling the Super Bowl next year for Fox in the booth. So, and I'm not sure if what's his name is going to be happy with that.
Romo?
No. Romo's CBS. Greg Olsen. I'm not sure because I think he's replacing him. But
I think so too. Yeah.
But yeah, dude. Great win for the Chiefs. That's a complete game. And the one thing I did want to say before we moved off is Travis Kelce.
Oh, yeah.
Baltimore pretty much, I don't want to say shut down Mahomes, but they were pretty close to it. Kansas City was inconsistent throughout the game, but nobody accounted for Kelce's postseason excellence. Look at these numbers. In the first half, he caught all 9 targets for 96 yards and a touchdown.
Monster.
So, I mean, Travis Kelce, by far the MVP. And it's crazy because we talk about like Mahomes is just going to find a way to win. But this is the kind of game where I was like, Travis Kelce and Mahomes, like together, the two of them, it's almost like us versus the world. And once in a while, Rashee Rice will make a play. But for the most part, especially in this game, Travis Kelce almost accounting for, if not over probably half of Mahomes' all of his passing yards. So
exactly half. Yeah,
exactly half. So yeah, dude, I really think they kind of have that approach, and it goes with the underdog. It goes with being on the road, you and me versus the world. And I think if the Chiefs do end up winning a Super Bowl, this is going to be probably the most special one between Travis Kelce and Mahomes, because of the fact that it really does seem like they just are putting the team on their back and just finding a way to win with the team that we didn't think would be in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and this is coming off a season that really the entire offense looked bad, but really more so Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce was like the whole Taylor Swift thing happened, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, he's playing like shit. We really put him under the microscope. And, to be fair, he wasn't having as great a seasons as he was having before, in the last 6 years with Mahomes. And yes, we can just kind of talk about that, but also we got to be like, oh yeah, he's 34 years old. He's 34. He's been in the league for like 12 years or so now, right? Like, yeah, this stuff happens, but then you put in a performance like you do in the AFC Championship, and then we're like, where is this Travis Kelce been all along? But he's been there the entire time. It's just crazy. I think you said it during our predictions of the championship Sunday. How the hell did the Chiefs get into the Super Bowl on an off year? They did it, man, and they just show up in big moments. And which brings me to my one of my last points. Lamar, fourth big playoff game, I guess you would say, one of the 5 that it just looks bad. And like that narrative starting to build. Can't do it in the big game. He can't do this. He can't do that. Against the Texans, he looked awesome. The second half adjustments made by the coaching staff was awesome, and he looked great. But to get to the Super Bowl, to have the defense you had, to have the weapons you had, to have played the game you had just played, to be the number 1 seed in the AFC, and that's what happens. You only score 10 points. You go 2.5 quarters without scoring anything, and then in the last few minutes of the fourth, you score a field goal. It's like, wow, man, it's really starting to become like Lamar Jackson and this Ravens just cannot get to the big game or cannot perform well in the playoffs when it matters.
Yeah, and we mentioned before this game started that would be even more of a narrative, and we mentioned a guy like Aaron Rodgers who makes it to a lot of NFC championships, Josh Allen, these quarterbacks that are very good in the regular season but don't win Super Bowls. But the difference between Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes is that Rodgers won a Super Bowl in only his second season as a starter. That would be like Love winning the Super Bowl next year. Like sometimes
don't do that to me. Don't do that to
me. No. I'm just saying, like, that is really fucking fast.
Like, yeah. Don't you do that to me.
So, I feel like it's almost a disrespect to even make that comparison yet, because Rodgers at least has a Super Bowl ring. So these guys don't. And
he got there.
He got there and won the game and did it with an offense. And that happened to be the best defense also that Rodgers ever had that year. So complete win, AJ Hawk. But anyway, I think if Lamar doesn't find a way to change this by next postseason, I don't want to say that, like, because remember, he just got paid. And this whole thing, you remember, we had a heated debate about this.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, don't pay him because he hasn't won. He hasn't proven that he's good in the postseason. Like, there's those quarterbacks that come in and win playoff games right away. And I hate to do another Packer thing, but Jordan Love this year, like, you have a feeling like when you see a guy that is never been in a moment like this, and he's, scoring 40 points in the game, you're like, oh, okay, it doesn't make a difference. This guy's just really good. Ben Roethlisberger was like that. He came in second year, won the Super Bowl. But once again, like, the Ravens just don't show up. And then this happened to be a year where he was fully healthy, and he hasn't been fully healthy in a full season in like 3 years. So you were like, okay, the injury concerns, like when's the next time Lamar's going to be able to stay healthy for the entire year? There's just a lot of question marks. And I don't think you feel good about, I know you said John Harbaugh, it's not on him. He's one of the best coaches. I understand all of that, but it's like you did allow it to happen. You could have walked over it. It felt like everything was lined up for this to be the Ravens' year, and the fact that they lost makes you think that, oh my God, do they have the Buffalo thing, going on over there?
Yeah.
And is that because there's really no reason when you looked at these numbers, the Ravens were in prime position to win the Super Bowl, and they looked like they didn't even belong in this game. So
yes,
it's going to be for the Ravens flock. It's not going to feel good. And this one is going to definitely not give you like the warm and fuzzies going into next season, because it's kind of similar to what Dan Campbell said, which we'll get to right now, actually. Do you got anything else on this one?
Nope.
So it's a pretty solid transition here, because Dan Campbell and the 49ers end up not getting the win, or the Dan Campbell and the Lions end up not getting the win. And the thing is they were up 17 points at halftime. And if you look at their third quarter point differential, which was minus 17, that was the worst quarter of any quarter throughout the entire season.
Oh, wow.
They were out yarded. So just like if you add up total yards, that was their second biggest yard differential in a quarter. This was a third quarter from hell. It literally was the worst quarter of the entire season, and it happened to happen in the worst moment in the biggest game. So Dan Campbell in the podium after this game, he said something that I know is true, and I don't think I've ever heard a coach say it, but he said it's going to be much harder next year to be here.
Yeah.
And he goes, that sucks. Like, I can't guarantee you that we'll be back here. And that's so true. You really learn in the NFL, unless you are a Mahomes or Brady, you really learn how hard it is to get to these big games. And then once you get to the playoffs, how hard it is to win a playoff game and then to win two of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very difficult to get to that position, and even good teams miss it all the time. So, and then even aside that, like the locker room, there's going to be guys that team's going to look totally different. It's like the end of Friday Night Lights where they're taking off the magnets. That's what happens every single offseason. What about all the balls that bounced your way? Are those balls going to bounce your way again next year? Probably not. The offense, right? You put it, no one was able to stop your offense. Well, now there's tape. Is the defense going to be able to study it and learn? But like, there's so much that's changing, every year. And I thought, man, he's right. He's right about that. And it does suck, because when you understand the magnitude of how important these games are, it only makes you feel more disappointed that they had a 17-point lead and couldn't close the door. They had the game right in front of them. Pretty much everybody at halftime was like, Detroit can probably book their ticket, but there's a chance, of course. But Detroit went into that halftime, and we had no reason to feel like they were going to slow down. And you blame the fourth down decisions, but Reynolds dropped the ball. They asked him about it, and he said, "Shit happens." That was his quote. Shit happens.
It does.
Shit shouldn't happen in the playoffs, but shit does happen. But like, Dan Campbell was asked about these fourth down, of course, decisions. He said, hindsight's always 20/20. And he's right. Like, if Reynolds catches that ball, there were times where I thought the obvious decision was to kick a field goal, and he elected to go for it. And, as much as I'm willing to be like that, sometimes you get in your own way. It's like you don't want to change, because the fact that you've won these playoff games, it kind of reinforces that you're doing right by betting on yourself.
Yeah.
If it weren't working, how would I be here? But you kind of get in your own way because sometimes it's just simple logic. Kick the field goal, stretch the lead as far as you can. Every point counts. And that was my only critique of Dan Campbell. But the receivers really let down Jared Goff. I don't think Jared Goff looked bad at all. There was definitely a shift where people were just dropping passes. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a drop. Reynolds had a drop. There was another big drop. Jamison Williams, I believe it was, had a huge drop on a 3rd and long. There was and then the fumble. I mean, if that fumbled it, like, it just felt like a total I don't know. They looked like, let me ask you this. Do you think that they looked like they weren't ready for this moment, or this was just the unluckiest series of events? Because I've gone kind of back and forth on it because especially if you're a fan of Detroit, you want to find a place to put the blame. That's part of the, the process of dealing with crisis.
Don't I know it? Yeah.
But it does feel like it's almost like there are a lot of players that just made 1 or 2 plays in a bad way in the second half, including that fumble on the kickoff after the 49ers were finally able to score. That was a huge swing of momentum, but the Lions still, man, they had that game, and it's got to be super disappointing if you're a Lions fan because, as I mentioned, they might not be here next year.
Yeah, and you mentioned that that's what Dan Campbell said. This may have been our only shot.
Night,
and
Bill.
That sucks. And that sucks.
Thanks for checking in. Go ahead.
Oh no, Bill's staying. Real fan sports was heading out. So thanks for.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, but Dan Campbell said it. This may have been our only shot. Do I believe that? No. Should we believe that? No. But it's very difficult to get here. Like you said, it's hard to win 1 playoff game. Shit, it's hard to win 2. It's hard to get to the Super Bowl and win that thing. 2 teams out of 32 go there every year. And those 2 teams are the best ones in the NFL, more likely, right, than not. The Lions to me looked prepared, man. The Lions to me looked more prepared than the 49ers in that first half. This was similar to the what game were Packers 49ers.
Yes.
49ers.
Yes. Very
common theme here, right? 49ers did not look like a team in that NFC divisional game where you had any faith in them. And yet the second half came through. You started completing passes. You started getting plays. You started getting interceptions, right? Clutch plays happened. And similarly from that game in this one, the Lions came out and they just scored and ran the ball and hit field goals and stopped the offense on the 49ers side, and they looked amazing. They looked really damn good. You had Gardner Johnson waving goodbye at all the 49ers fans.
So sad.
In the second quarter. Yeah, and it was so sad. And then you see him in the fourth quarter just hanging on to his pads and just looking sad, just like, fuck, why did I wave goodbye?
Did you hear what Nick Bosa said on the sideline? He was like, George Kittle.
Yeah, about hey, they had us in the first half, not gonna lie.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was hilarious. But yeah, man, the Lions in the first half looked amazing. And to kind of speak a little bit, because this is what I heard on a podcast earlier today or yesterday, I forget when, it's like Dan Campbell going for it on 4th downs. We talked about it. He was over 50%, 52 to be exact, 52.5, whatever it was, going for it on 4th down. He was converting more than half of his 4th down attempts.
That's insane.
He stayed true to himself in this game. Yeah. And the thing is, like, he did what he's been doing all season. He stayed consistent. He stayed consistent with going for it on 4th down. There was no Dan Campbell being like, I don't know, should I go for it now? It's like, no, he's like, we're going to go for it. And the team, from what I see, from what I hear, from what I see from press conferences and shit, they're with him 100%. And this is part of being with Dan Campbell. This is part of him saying this may have been our only shot. right? This is part of him saying it's tough to get here. It's tough to stay here, but I don't believe that we are not going to be here next year, right? But he stayed consistent. He stayed true to himself, going for it on fourth downs. And when you go to make it, you know, when you should be going for the field goals, taking the points, him not going for it, it sucks. But he went out the way Dan Campbell is going to go out, going for it on fourth down. So as Lions fans, like you said, yes, you're going to look at things to kind of grasp onto and be like, that's the reason we lost. We should have won this game. Yeah, you probably could. The thing is, the 49ers in that second half came out better. They just came out the better team. They were not the good team they were in the first half for 2 games. Can you keep that up in the Super Bowl? That's going to be tough. That is a question that the 49ers have to ask themselves. Is this something that we can keep up against the Chiefs? Because look what happened to the Chiefs in the second half of that game. They got shut out, and they still came out with a win. The 49ers cannot continue this going into the Super Bowl, man. They have gotten lucky twice. Both their players have stepped up in the second half, and they were able to execute. They were able to be better than the team across from them when they knew that they shit the bed the half before. They looked at each other in that locker room and were like, the Lions just kicked our ass. And then the week prior, they said the Packers kicked our ass. And maybe there's something there for those players to have looked at in the locker room when they're there and they're down and they look to be like, this is their final game. This is their last half. And something maybe rose up out of them to be like, no, we're the better team. We're the 49ers. We're the number 1 seed for a reason. And then they were just better, those 2 halves. But can you keep that up? Brock Purdy had a very solid game in the second half. Brandon Ayuk had a ridiculous catch that was that came off the defender's hands.
Talk about a ball bouncing your way.
Exactly. Catching it. Falling to the ground, a flag coming in, and still being able to get up to get into the touchdown. Like, everything was working for the 49ers in the second half. And if you're a Lions fan, you're looking at that, and then you're also looking at Dan Campbell's decision-making and going, dude, no. What are we doing?
Bad Campbell.
Bad Dan. Bad DC. Bad. Because, look, that's part of this game, man. It really is, because we can say that the Lions were the better team and that the 49ers kind of lucked their way into the Super Bowl, right? And that can be true, but also, luck is what? Luck is hard work meets opportunity, right? That's what happened to the 49ers. And you know what the opportunities were? When Dan Campbell elected to go for it on fourth down. There was what happened when that 1 4th down happened, and I was like, Kyle, is this the one that changes the game right now for the 49ers? And you're like, possibly. Obviously, we were super early into the game. We can't predict that, but it is still a question that, it arisen to me. But you take those opportunities when they're given to you, and Dan Campbell gave it to them. I'm not going to say he gave them a failed 4th down attempt. He gave them a 4th down attempt that the 49ers were able to stop. And they took those attempts and scored touchdowns and scored field goals. Of course, Jahmyr Gibbs fumbling too. Huge. But again, it's what you do with those opportunities that count. And that's why we should give the 49ers credit for winning that game. The Lions, again, it's sad because we were rooting for the Lions the entire season. My Bears in the NFC North. I hate the Lions, but the Lions have suffered for quite a bit. They've suffered for quite a bit. And as a guy, as a fan who knows suffering from your sports franchise, let's give them their credit where it's due. But you got to give credit to all those guys: Aiden Hutchinson, Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown. But you're right, a lot of those guys came up short when the moment was big. You dropped balls. Jared Goff was, again, pretty perfect, 273 yards and a touchdown. He did not give up anything on his end. It's just in this part, kind of similar to God, what team am I thinking of in the wild card? that dropped so many balls. I can't remember which team it was during this playoff that I was like, had they just caught more of those balls, like it wouldn't be on them right now.
Was it Tampa?
Maybe it was Tampa. I can't remember exactly, but it's similar. It's the same thing. What do you do with these opportunities, man? You're just dropping the balls. You're fumbling the ball. It sucks, but that's just kind of the way the ball bounces sometimes. So I think the Lions fans have a lot to be able to be mad about. And the 49ers fans have a lot to be like, whew, about, right? Like, because on both sides, those things happen. The bounce to Ayuk, the fumble by Jahmyr Gibbs, the fourth down failed attempts. The fact that you won by 3 points, 49ers, right? Because you were down 17 at the half. And you mentioned that third quarter by the Lions was rough. Dan Campbell knows his defense, and he knew that third quarter was going to be a rough one, and he tried to do as much as he could to prevent that, but not scoring in the third quarter. That was huge for the Lions, man. And unfortunately for them, they go home, they hang their heads, but they're going to have an entire city. They're welcoming them and just being like, great fucking job, boys. Great job.
Yeah. The thing you were saying about the drops, God, I had something. I just lost it. I just lost it. But damn it, I was hoping if I pretended I was over it, it would come back to me. And
was it about which team it was, or
no? It was what you were saying right after that.
Just missing those opportunities.
Missing the opportunities. Nope, it's gone.
Nope, I lost it.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. That great thought.
Yeah, oh, I got it. All I had to do was give up on it. So last time the Lions and 49ers played in the playoffs, the Lions were down 17 at halftime and came back and won.
Mm-hmm.
And this time the Lions were up 17 and the 49ers came back and won. I just thought that was cool.
You're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, because when they said that, I was like, uh-oh. 49ers are in good shape, but I was joking. But wait, what was the 34-31? Okay. Yeah, dude. So the 49ers are moving on. It seems like the 49ers, it's their time. I if I could push a button though and put the Lions there, I'm here to tell you I would. And
that button not only put the Lions in the Super Bowl, but killed one 49ers fan. Would you still do it?
No.
Good.
Was that supposed to be like a hard thing, like a hard question?
I just wanted to see if you do it or not.
No, I like the 49ers, and that's why I got the Brock Purdy shirt. I love the story and all that. It's just, I don't know. Sometimes when you feel like you're kind of equal on two teams, but then when one of them loses, you're like clearly more upset, and you're like, okay, this is who I wanted to win. Because I just felt like the Lions were just, to me, the most entertaining team probably this season. A very animated head coach, the second youngest team in the league. Just kind of remind me of how Michigan was when Harbaugh got suspended. How the players kind of all. It's just such a, like, you can see that they're a family, and you can see it on the field. And Bill makes a great point. You say, aren't they keeping to keep a couple people though? Yeah, Ben Johnson gonna be staying in Detroit. And I know I said that example about like how things are gonna be different, but I guess for the Lions, probably getting those bounces, and I think Dan Campbell was probably mostly referring to Jordan Love is going to be better next year. And they're in the same division. So I think he sees that there's young teams that arguably will be better next year. Maybe Tampa, even with Baker going into his second year, because there's definitely a young wave of talent right now, and it's hitting different teams. So it seems like the NFL gets better every year, and I don't know if it's just me, but it's crazy to think that the Lions and 49ers are going to draft another amazing group of people. And dude, because they're going to be nasty. But I think it's the right approach to to, not take it for granted, because you have to have the mentality when you go into the next season that you haven't earned anything. That just because you were here last year doesn't mean that you're just going to end up here. That kind of mentality is what makes teams not end up back in those games. So I think Dan Campbell is maybe a lot of that has to do with getting his players' mentality right going into next year. Like, we're back at square one, and that's the truth. You get no points for this season. Nothing rolls over to this year besides experience, maybe. So I hope that the Lions capitalize off that mentality, that they stay humble, and that they keep grinding and biting these kneecaps off, because they're, to me, one of the most fun teams to watch. And I like seeing them in these big games. And I would really, I think at some point in my life, be happy if Detroit won a Super Bowl, as long as it wasn't against Denver.
So, like, with that being said, then could you, and this is obviously like looking forward an entire year, but can you see this Lions team in the playoffs again as a division winner, as a wild card winner? Maybe not at all. Like, can you see them like going into next year with the same, let's say the same people, give or take a couple of, not really stars, but give or take a couple of pieces? Could you see them going to a Super Bowl maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. They remind me in a way of kind of the 49ers who just beat them, because the 49ers have so much talent, and you're like, man, there's no way that you got CMC for a 6th round pick and a 3rd or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then they add, the Chase Young, and it's like, oh my God, how ridiculous can this get?
Yeah.
And the Lions, to me, are the other NFC team that's just loaded. And if they would have lost Ben Johnson, I would have said there's probably going to be a learning curve with whoever's coming in. But with that not being the case, I think Ben Johnson and Dan Quinn have something similar in mind. Hey, I'm already a part of a really good team. Like, I could go now and potentially be hired as a head coach, maybe not. And then all of a sudden, maybe I don't have as much confidence, because why didn't they want me as a head coach? But if you win a Super Bowl, your value is going to shoot through the roof. And that'll even make up if you go somewhere and don't have success. That Super Bowl ring will make sure you get a 2nd and 3rd opportunity to coach. So I think it's a smart decision by both coordinators to, hey, why don't we build off of what we have here, and I think it'll be better. It's a long-term strategy, but I think it's a good career decision for both of them. But yeah, the Lions, they're going to have another great draft, because they're really good at drafting, and it's kind of like when you got the hot hand at the poker table. It's just the cards keep on coming, and I think the Lions are going to definitely be back in this game next year.
So, like, I can also see them kind of moving forward next year, right, into the playoffs. Like, I could see them being a playoff team for the next 3-4 years under Dan Campbell. Really, if like what you're saying, the draft goes correctly, the guys that they have like perform at a certain level, and they're able to compete. What's that? Yeah, they don't have to pay anybody for a while. They really don't. Yeah. And if they can compete at the level with, for right now, we're saying Jordan Love and the Packers are probably the next best team in that NFC North.
Or the Bears. Because you guys are gonna draft the best edge pass rusher in the league, and you're gonna pair it with Montez Sweat. The defense is going to be disgusting next year. And
our defense is going to be really good next year.
Yeah, it's going to be nasty. Yeah. And that's why the Bears are – I think this is going to be a really good division next year.
Yeah, I hope –
the Vikings. I always feel like the Vikings.
There's always got to be one, though, too. There's always got to be one.
Always got to be one.
Yeah. But do you think like though with the Lions, though, do you think there's like a missing piece anywhere? Because there seems to be – and I hate to do this, but like Jared Goff – do you move off of Jared Goff if you have an opportunity?
No.
For a better quarterback?
You don't.
You don't?
You don't. That's the thing. Jared Goff is easily a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. And if you build around a top 12 quarterback, they can win a Super Bowl. I think like Goff's not the reason they lost this game. They don't have to
No,
move
not
off
at all.
Goff. Like
But
that, if anything, they need to move off Reynolds or like some of the guys that dropped those passes.
I guess more in the sense of like how Travis Kelce had a bad year and all of a sudden he turned it on in the playoffs. He's catching it for 100 yards, 8-9 catches. Patrick Mahomes is over here having a very subpar year, nowhere near MVP level like we've seen him. And then it gets to the playoffs and he is just rolling. Like do the Lions need a player like that, especially on the offense? Like, because Amon-Ra St. Brown, he wasn't great in this game. Like, he wasn't amazing. Like, there was a couple drops where we saw him, we're like, oh shit. Like, he had 7 catches, don't get me wrong, but it was still like, oof, that should have been caught. That should be a first down. That should be moving the sticks, things like that. Like, players are going to have bad games, but it just seems like you have your Travis Kelce's and your Patrick Mahomes and your CMCs and those guys. And then there's everyone else. You know what I mean? Like, there's that top tier. I
think Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are plenty good to win a Super Bowl. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, and Sam Laporta are very, very good weapons. And they had the best offensive line in the playoffs. So, I mean, when you talk about complete team, like, I don't think you have to do anything offensively. But if you want to, like you said, draft one more, like Devon Achane. It's actually Achane. I don't know who said Achane.
He did.
I just watched him say that's Achane.
No way.
Yeah, and he told the booth that as well in their production meetings. So then I was like, well, I've always been saying Achane. So who told me? Because I remember I looked it up on Texas A&M's website, and it had it like in parentheses. Here's what you got to do. Go to YouTube and type in his name and then put interview after on the sideline. Oh, no. Tyreek Hill. Look at the video of Tyreek Hill. They asked Tyreek Hill. They said, you're the cheetah. So what is Devon Achane? They don't say Achane.
Achane's name is pronounced Achane, according to the former Texas A&M running back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. But that was in September.
So I found that because I was on. I really.
Oh no, Achane. Yeah.
Where do you see Achane?
4 months ago was when he updated everyone. Not Achane as it currently is listed in the team's media guide. Achane. Achane's name is pronounced Achane, according to the former Texas A&M running back.
Why wouldn't he correct Texas A&M the whole time he was there?
I don't know. I don't get it.
Okay, this is so funny though. Bill goes, Kyle getting a name right is proof that a broken clocks right twice a day.
And he still got it wrong.
It's debatable. I'm gonna write a letter though, and we're gonna make a documentary about it. So
I love it.
Maybe a guy like that, where he can, be like a Deebo Samuel type. Maybe they could add a piece like that, but their secondary is really where they need to add depth. I think Sutton is their DB, and he's
Johnson.
Yeah, Gardner Johnson's all right, but Sutton is not. So you could add maybe the best safety in the draft, or get like, let's say 1, 2. Probably you'll get a top 4 cornerback where they're drafting, top 5. But I think if you focus on building that passing defense up, this team could be a juggernaut next year, because they're just one of those few teams that they'll be the most complete team. If they do that, they'll be the most complete team. They have only been to the playoffs once, so they got that experience, and other teams are going to have to pay people a bunch of money. The Lions don't. They're going to have an advantage over every team next year because they're going to be the most talented team. And they not only that, because we've seen the Cowboys have very talented teams, but they're not brothers. They're not like, I will die for you, And this Lions team has just that family aspect. And I think when you multiply that with that talent, this will probably be a Super Bowl favorite. They'll be in the top 3 best odds to win a Super Bowl next year, I think.
And you make a really good point there, that like brotherhood, that like strength, that unity they have. Like you see that every time they talk to the media. Like Jared Goff, you've got great weapons. Thank you. But not like the 49ers. Never mind. You know what I mean? Like those little things right there. Jared Goff took that personally and was like, never mind. Fuck that. Thank you that I just said, right? So he takes that personally. And I really just bring that up because like in my football watching career, yes, I'm going to call it a career. In my football watching career, I've seen teams where they are in the playoffs. They've got a great set of players. They make the playoffs and they're heartbroken and they're like, we're going to come back next year. And they don't. And they do not, right? Like every single Chargers team of the mid to late 2000s and moving forward. The Bears when they made the Super Bowl. The
Giants last year.
The Giants last year. There's a ton. Sorry, Bill. There's a ton of teams that just have that, you know, like the Seahawks, for example, are one of those teams too.
Yeah.
You know, the Broncos to a certain extent as well, right? Like, you know, to a certain extent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, we have great pieces right now, and then they don't make it. And it's like, man, I really hope the Lions aren't like that, except when they play the Bears. But I really hope they're not like that because, like you said, they don't have to pay a quarterback really that much. All their big star guys are right now on rookie contracts, so they have a good solid 2 years ahead of them where they're going to have cap space and no worries as to like having to pay guys. But yeah, I would just really hate to see the Lions do that. But yeah, I just thought I'd bring up those questions because I think it's interesting to kind of talk about that, like. Not necessarily just talk about the now, but talk about the future too, because it's like, okay, they didn't make it this year, but are they missing a piece? You know, Ben Johnson and their defensive coordinator, those guys are coming back, and that's awesome because, like you said, they know the talent and the team they've got here, and they've got the best shot to win a Super Bowl with them as coordinators. Head coaches, you might have a bit, and you also might be struggling, and there's a ton of pressure. If you're a coordinator, you're like, yeah, I'm not the head coach, and I'm able to focus on a certain section of the game instead of worrying about the entire pie. So I just figured I'd bring those questions up.
Yeah, and Deebo Samuel, if he doesn't play in this game, the Lions win. And we talked about, absolutely. So they did this is PFF. You can go to pff.com and check it out yourself, but they did the highest graded players from conference weekend. So this is the receivers, but it includes all four teams that played. And Deebo Samuel was the number one highest rated efficiency score of 85.1. He's the only one even in the 80s.
Wow.
The next closest is Brandon Ayuk, who is 72.4. And then you get Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions at a 73, but 85.1 Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
9 targets, 8 catches. 88% of his targets were caught. 90 yards, about 89, and 11 yards per catch. So, I mean, 49ers, they just were able to kind of squeak by, but none of this happens without Deebo. I don't think so.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I know we spent a lot of time talking about if Deebo doesn't play, I'm out. You know.
But, also CMC, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns, by the way. No big deal, right? No big deal.
Yeah, just another day at the office.
Just another day at the office for him.
And Zay Flowers, man, that taunting penalty, that I forgot about that for a second. I know you brought it up, but I forgot that they would have been inside the 10 had he not done that.
They would have been at like the 5.
Yeah, I forgot how close they were. So, man, he really just shit the bed in those moments.
Because then at that point, you're probably not passing the ball. You're probably running the ball with Gus Edwards. You're probably running the ball with Lamar Jackson or Hill. That opens up the run game. Oh, I'm starting to see success. Completely different game probably. And just a quick little tidbit. The taunting penalty has been in the NFL for 2 years now. complaints across the board. Do you think they get rid of it after the season, Kyle?
No, I don't think they should. I don't think they will. So the taunting the first year it came in was ridiculous. Like we talked about it. Like they couldn't like shoot a bow into the crowd. Like, and I thought it was horrible for the NFL. I like when they let players express themselves, but I do like there to remain a portion of dignity involved. I don't mind celebrating, but when you get up and a defender's in your face and you're fucking, being a dickhead, like to me, that's what the penalty's for. It's like, hey, you can celebrate, but you shouldn't have to degrade the other team in order for you to celebrate. Like, I mean, I don't mind like clapping, and like there's like levels to it where, you can, if you're jawing back and forth and it's a heated exchange, like I'm probably not throwing the flag there. But if you're just like kind of a complete asshole, it's like, all right, come on. Like, I think that's what the flag exists for. And people are only mad about it because they're Raven fans. So.
Well, Joe Burrow had a little something to say about that too.
What did Joe Burrow say?
He tweeted, "Let him taunt."
Okay, that's just Joe Burrow.
That is Joe Burrow. You're right, but I think
he shouldn't be sticking up for a division team anyway.
That's true. That is fact. I think it's going to be a great discussion over the offseason. We're not going to do it today, but
argument of the day with
argument of the week. Oh geez, know that.
Fred Warner also, you got to give Fred Warner his flowers. He had 4 stops in the run game, and he didn't miss any of his 5 tackle attempts. One of the best in the league. Easily. He had a great game.
Easily one of the best in the league. But yeah, guys, that was Championship Sunday. Kyle, did you have anything else before we move on?
Nope. Just that I hope I see Bill's comment here. I hope they do stop throwing it on bullshit. They need to reserve it for the right moment. When it's misused, it makes people want it to go away, and I don't think it should. But if they don't start using it the right way, I think it will. But yeah, let's move on to some of these coaches.
Yeah, for sure. And if you guys are joining us, please make sure to drop a like on the video, a subscription, a comment. We're obviously here reading all your comments. So go ahead, drop a comment if you'd like. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys for joining us this late at night here. Night. Because clearly I don't sound very good. Monday, it was weird. Monday came around and I was like, I'm not going to be able to do the podcast tonight. I was like, oh, fuck. And this is after Championship Sunday, one of the biggest weeks in the NFL season. And I told Kyle, I was like, dude, I feel like shit. Clearly, dog shit. You guys clearly can hear me and I'm fucking coughing over here in the corner. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you
sound
guys.
Hot sick.
Oh, thank you. Welcome to WBBM Radio with your guy DJ Rick, spinning the hits, licking the clits.
Let's go.
Thank you guys for joining us late as we are. So thank you guys. But yes, Kyle, like Kyle said, let's move on to one of the coach hirings. The Seahawks finally get their coach. And it is going to be Mike Macdonald, Ravens defensive coordinator, is going to be replacing Pete Carroll in Seattle. He becomes the NFL's youngest head coach at 36 years old, getting a 6-year deal for Seattle. Kyle, Seattle loves its defensive coaches, it seems like.
Yeah. My takeaway from this is I think 3 things. The first thing is what you said. Seattle loves their defensive coaches, and it's kind of weird because if they were going to move off Pete Carroll, you think that maybe they wanted to go in a different direction, bring in a different philosophy, and it's not. It's kind of more of the same. The second thing is that once Pete Carroll, I don't want to say he got fired because technically he moved up to a different position, but once they made that change, I said, man, there's got to be somebody that they want. And it turns out Seattle came out and said that they were willing to wait until the Super Bowl. They thought the Ravens were going to go to the Super Bowl. And Macdonald was their guy the entire time. So that was true, that they had their eyes on somebody that they really wanted. do you know anything about his journey? Like, because I heard about it today. I think it was on the Pat McAfee show.
Yeah. So, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was asking like how he like rose because he was a high school coach, and
Mhm.
then he got a job with Georgia being quality control, I believe, and
Mhm.
then he got his first opportunity with the Ravens, and now he's a head coach. And I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm hoping this article says it somewhere. No, it doesn't. I believe it was like a 6-year period from him
Ye
coaching in high school to being a head coach in the NFL, which is just a fucking awesome story.
I don't know if it was 6 years because it says here that he broke into the NFL with the Ravens, like you said correctly, 2014. And until just this past year, or like honestly, just until this last Sunday, the only time he wasn't with the Ravens was in 2021 when he served as Michigan's defensive coordinator. So he was going from Harbaugh to Harbaugh, double dipping the Harbaugh tree there. So he was with Michigan in 2021, came back with the Ravens and was the defensive guy, defensive coordinator. And obviously, last 2 seasons, the Ravens defense has been one of the best in the league. So, McDonald is a guy who, like you said, defensive minded guy, and how as much as Seattle loves it, I think that's what they wanted to continue to improve on was their defense. Shane Waldron, obviously, and the entirety of Pete Carroll's staff being gone from the building. I think they just were like, we liked our defensive head coach and we want to continue that similar path, but with a different philosophy, with a young coach, literally half the age of Pete Carroll. And the 6-year deal obviously is like, I think they want to just like show that they want to invest in this younger minded coach who's coming from 2 organizations, Michigan and the Ravens, where they showed that they can be those like contenders in both of their, leagues respectively. Right. So them losing Shane Waldron and Pete Carroll moving on up, you're going to take your losses, but you're going to start a brand new chapter with this guy, bringing in his own guys, younger guy, which is something that has seemed to work a lot for teams in the past. You look at Mike McDaniel, you look at Sean McVay, you look at Kyle Shanahan, you look at all these guys who are, continually having success because they're a little bit on the younger side, have a different mindset. But Mike McDonald, I think is going to be a good hire. Let's see. He has presided over Ravens defense to finish first in the NFL in points allowed, 6th in passing, first in fewer touchdown runs allowed, 7th in third down, and 2nd in red zone efficiency. So he's going to have a ton of success in Seattle, and I think he's going to bring back that like almost Legion of Boom back to that Seattle defense, hopefully, right? Because as someone who lives in Washington, I would love to see that success on the defensive side for the Seahawks again.
Yeah, I was trying to see. So here we go. It's interesting because we see these coaches that kind of move. Like you go from Jim Harbaugh to John Harbaugh to Jim Harbaugh back to John Harbaugh. It's kind of cool because he had so much success with both people. You almost feel like you're getting a Harbaugh yourself because he spent so much time with them. It's like
you're getting the third brother.
Do you want a Harbaugh without having a Harbaugh? Because I can do it. And the other thing is he could take the pros and cons from both brothers and be like, okay, like this is kind of my own thing. This is what I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I mentioned this, I think a couple weeks ago when the coaches first started rapidly getting hired, is that if there's a coach that's never been a head coach before, like most of the time we feel really good about it. Like it looks great on paper. It's like when you draft a quarterback with the first overall pick, it's like, yeah, just plug and play. Everything's going to be all right. But a lot of times these don't work out. It's just the reality. And I wouldn't be so quick myself to say, oh, this is definitely going to work out. He's earned the opportunity to prove it, but being a head coach in the NFL is extremely hard. He's going to be working with Dan Schneider, who actually retained his job as the general manager. So they've been drafting really well. So he should have kept his job. But if it works out, I'll be happy for him. But the other thing is the league is trending offensively, and the going defense is, to me, I mean, you saw this a couple times. You saw the Falcons do it. Hey, let's get rid of Arthur Smith, who wants to play defense and run the football, and bring in a defensive guy. Hey, let's fire Bill Belichick and then hire not Brian Flores. He was not Brian.
I know who you're talking about. I just can't remember the name right now.
Yeah, it's like you say it a different way than the way people say it. I mean, I had a whole thing about it.
Yeah.
Gerard Mayo.
Gerard Mayo.
It is. Yeah. We do this show live.
I love how you got there. I love how you got there, by the way.
It's Jared from Subway. What? So, yeah, the Patriots go defense, and then they fire or let go of Pete Carroll, move him up, and then they go defense. So it's kind of weird that you're seeing all these teams say, hey, current philosophy is not working. Let's bring in that same philosophy. It's crazy.
So, and you're
the Titans were the only team that didn't. They took the offensive coordinator from Cincinnati instead of a defensive. Well, Mike Vrabel was a tight end, right?
Mike Vrabel was a linebacker.
Yeah. He's defense. So he's defense. So that's the only team that flipped. Go ahead.
So, with that being said, it just, because the Seahawks have been known, except maybe for onesie twosies, for having a pretty solid hey, you're our coach. You're going to be our coach for 10 years. Pete Carroll was 14 seasons or so. Before him, it was Jim Mora for a season. Then before that, it was Mike Holmgren, who went to the playoffs several times with the Seattle Seahawks. So they've had those coaches consistently. And if I'm not mistaken, was Holmgren more in the defense? I believe he was, right? Because he was with the Packers for a bit too.
He was with the Packers.
He was more on the defensive side.
He won a Super Bowl with the Packers.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, so he was more on the defensive side. But they keep their guys for a while. And as someone who seems to be riding the fucking coach carousel every so often, even though it's a defensive guy, and you're 100% correct in saying the NFL is more of an offensive league now, even that, with that being the case, do you kind of look at that consistency in terms of we're going to give this guy 6 years and more if he continues his success? Do you see that as a good thing for the team, even if it is a defensive head coach, versus an offensive guy? Do you see that still as a good thing that can possibly improve that team and lead them to a Super Bowl in the future?
No. Well, I don't want to say no, because he may just be the head coach, and he may bring in an offensive coordinator that's really good, right? Yeah. And he's you're calling the plays. And this is kind of how the Harbaughs operate. Like you said, John wasn't calling the plays, and Jim's not an air-it-out guy. He's going to have tight ends heavily involved, and he's going to run the football, and he's going to have a good defense. So there are certain coaches, and coincidentally, this guy works so closely with Harbaugh that maybe his approach is going to be very similar, where he could have success, and he could maybe win a Super Bowl, but it's not going to be because he's dialing up really amazing plays. It's going to be because he hired the right coordinators, at least offensively. So, I wouldn't say that it's definitely not going to work out. But when you get a defensive head coach, it does feel like we're living in a time where it's an uphill battle when you start seeing guys like Pete Carroll and Mike Tomlin, who are top 15 in winning percentage in all time. Bill Belichick, number 3 all time. And all these guys are, either not there anymore, or they're not winning Super Bowls. So Andy Reid's the only offensive coach. He's 4th in all-time winning percentage. And I think you're going to start to see these offensive guys climb the chart. Sean Payton's at 21 right now. He's going to climb. Mike McCarthy will continue to climb. You got, those are the Ron Rivera's probably not going to climb.
No, he's done.
Probably done. So
he's done.
But I mean, you look at some of these defensive guys that are in the top 12. guys like Don Shula, George Hallis,
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Fisher,
Yeah.
Dan Reeves,
Yeah.
Marty Schottenheimer, Paul Brown, Curly Lambeau. I mean, this is a different NFL. You go like look at these names. If you could,
Exactly.
remember what these games look like, totally different league. And
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely, I think, some kind of sense of urgency to, what do you call it when you're like proactive about the environment or other things you're
Like environmentally conscious.
yeah, like, but there's a word for progressive.
Oh,
Progressive.
progressive. Oh,
I
okay.
don't
Okay.
I don't think it's a progressive move when you think about the direction the NFL is headed. So I don't know, like, how would you feel if you got this hire? I mean, because I'm always a guy that loves every hire. I love Vance Joseph. I love Vic Fangio, but
Yeah.
once they suck, I'm out. Like I
Yeah.
don't. But I always feel good about the coach. I do.
Yeah.
That way
And
too. Like
I was gonna say, and Mike McDonald isn't one of those names, right? Like, isn't your Vrabel, isn't your Ben Johnson, but Ben Johnson's staying. Vrabel, who knows what Vrabel's doing? Bill Belichick, he was still out there. You don't want to go with Bill Belichick? Does he seem? Was that not the move? Did you want to go younger? I guess I just bring up more the fact that Seattle holds on to their coaches, you know, for more or less the through thick and thin, right? And I look at that aspect of it, and I'm like, well, you won a Super Bowl with Carroll, right? Like, sure he was there for 14 seasons, and it took a Legion of Boom type of defense and a really shitty call on a 4th and 1 or whatever to only have that one. But you stuck with them, and I think for the better of that franchise, or I'm sorry, that was for the better of that franchise, because you were very much still in the conversation of playoffs. You had your quarterback there. You had a consistent what's the word? A consistent like
continuity.
coaching continuity, yeah, with your coach. Like he had the same message. It was the same message when you walked in as a rookie, and it was the same message when you walked out, if you retired or you were traded or signed somewhere else, right? Like it was the same message. So I think there is value to that versus really just kind of going over the shiny thing. But I still believe in that offensive coach too. I don't believe this is some glamorous hire. And sometimes those don't seem to work out. Those really don't work out probably 50% of the time. You kind of hit on one or you don't. And as a Bears fan, I know that with Matt Nagy. I know that. But I guess I'm also just trying to convince myself that them keeping Eberflus for a 3rd year is going to be good for the continuity of the team. So I guess I'm just trying to see if there really is in the long term of value in that continuity with a head coach, knowing that this franchise is doing that. Here's a 6-year contract. You are going to get those 6 years. Why? Because we are a franchise that believes in giving head coaches the 6 years. You look at teams like the Steelers, the Ravens, the Patriots for 2 decades. You look at Andy Reid now with the Chiefs. All of these teams, the Cowboys, yeah, they stick with their coaches. For as much shit as Jerry Jones gets, they stick with their guys for the length of their contract. And really, made not the Cowboys, but you look at Tomlin, you look at Harbaugh, you look at Reid, you look at Belichick, and you're like, for that entire coaching regime and era, they've got at least a Super Bowl. And you kind of say that with like, yeah, it was just one though. I would kill for a fucking Super Bowl in a 10-year span. And to have it in the same with the same coach and to constantly be in the conversation of playoffs, of Super Bowl, of, oh, this team looks like they can be good this year, of being in the division race. Like, I think there is some sort of value with an organization being like, you are our head coach. You're going to have shitty years. We're hoping you're going to have that one amazing year where we go to the Super Bowl and win it. But I think as an organization, it's better to have that same coach for a decade and have some success and hopefully that one good year than to constantly be in and out of coaches 2-3 years. Have 3-4 coaches in a 10-12 year span. I don't think that's good for any organization ever, even like for the Patriots, for example. I don't know if the Patriots could have done that in their 20-year span if they lost to the Giants Super Bowl and they're like, Belichick, you're fucking out for some reason, right? Let's just say that was the situation. I don't know if the Patriots have that same success over the next decade plus before Tom Brady leaves with 2-3 new coaches.
Yeah, I mean, coaching definitely matters. So
yeah,
I the only thing else I would say to all of that is that the contract is just a contract. It can be broken in 2
yeah,
years if he
yeah.
doesn't do good. Like any coach that gets fired, I mean, they're still under contract. Like Nathaniel Hackett got fired in his first 15 games. You
yeah,
know, like there's no way they're like, well, we want to fire you, but we have to honor this contract. I mean,
yeah.
it's more of a financial contract than a head coaching contract. Like, hey, we're tied to pay you for this long, and that does reflect how invested you are in somebody. So I do think it matters, but with keeping in mind that it can be broken as soon as things aren't going well. I think the Raiders are still paying 2 head coaches. Josh McDaniels and John Gruden are both getting paid right now. So they're like, yeah, we'll keep Antonio Pierce for a little bit.
Well, we'll do it.
We're not going to get another big, huge $100 million contract out.
And I wonder if, like, 3-4 seasons from now, we're going to look back at this Mike Macdonald hire and be like, that was not the splashiest move, but Seattle's probably back in the race. I wonder, like that was the right move for Seattle, not going for Vrabel, not going for Belichick, not going for Ben Johnson, even though, he hadn't said that he wasn't leaving the Lions yet, something like that. Like I really do wonder, because Mike Macdonald, again, not a big name, not the splashiest hire, defensive guy, like we said. Yeah, that kind of a boring move, really, if you're an NFL fan, but will this pay off in like,
if he's anything like Harbaugh, then it's going to be great.
The Harbaugh tree is starting to spread its roots.
Yeah. No, I would feel really good about this if I were a Seattle fan, just because of his experience with Harbaugh, but we'll wait and see if he's anything like them, or if it's like, come on, dude, we had Vrabel,
Yeah.
And that's interesting to see, like,
feel that.
Is Vrabel going to be hired by the Commanders? Like, he's just not a head coach anymore.
Yeah, I know.
This just blows my mind. The Belichick thing, I thought he would take a year off. I didn't think he would be coaching this year, but Vrabel, not only was he not on my radar to get fired, but the fact that he might not even be a coach this season. It's like, it almost feels like there's a lot we don't know. And I was getting my haircut at a barbershop up the street. Nice. And the guys, I'm in Tennessee. So I mentioned, like, oh man, it was so dumb that they fired Vrabel. And I got a lot of backlash. And I realized that I'm
really?
not, people know their team better than we do. And they're like, yeah, man, it was like, he had this kind of persona, like all the players say it, that it's like his way or the highway, kind of like, no, we're going to do it my way. And there's just like these kind of like personality conflicts within the organization. So I think that's really what it was. Like, I think Mike Vrabel is a good enough coach to be there, but the front office just didn't want to deal with him anymore. And it was probably mutual. And that's, I didn't know that he kind of had this reputation of being a little bit of an asshole, which was something that Belichick was kind of known for as well. But these are just barbershop talk, but they're fans, so they definitely are invested. So it's worth more than what I know about the situation. So I guess that might be a part of what's going on here, and maybe all these owners, they all talk. So I mean, he might just be on like a blacklist or something.
And obviously we're gonna find out what happens with Vrabel, what happens with Belichick as kind of the season goes along, maybe before the Super Bowl, but probably after the Super Bowl. Speaking of franchise, defining or changing moves, Kyler, the Denver Broncos trading up in the draft with the Bears, possibly with the Commanders or the Patriots, possibly. I wonder. There's been reports, and I read one earlier today, and I was like, oh no, because Kyle's about to go into it a little bit, and he's gonna get sad about it. But I read that, and I was like,
was this foreshadowed? Was this foreshadowed when I handed you a jersey?
I wonder if it was.
And we said our teams are so connected. Do they somehow? Do you know what the observer effect is? Like in like the quantum world, it's like things will behave differently when you're observing them than they would if you weren't.
I totally believe that.
Yeah. And I really feel that is heavily going on between the Bears and the Broncos. I'm hearing that the trade could happen with the Commanders. And embarrassingly enough, when I found this out, I opened Twitter and it said like the Washington Commanders hire somebody, one of the people that they were interviewing as head coach, and trade the number 2 overall pick to the Denver Broncos. Like, he didn't say like this might happen or this is what I want to happen. He just said it like it, and I literally was like, oh my God. And I got goosebumps everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're gonna get either Drake May or Caleb Williams. And it felt so real to me. And then I was like, let me make sure this is real. So I opened up the
NFL. I thought he was dreaming.
Yeah. Well, no, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't getting got, and I was got already. But there is a lot of truth to it. So people really close to the building are saying that Sean Payton is heavily interested in moving up, way up, like 1 or 2, not like move up to 7. The report is that he's not interested in waiting to see what quarterback falls. He wants to go get it. And he was also one of the only coaches. And you have to take him on his word for it, but I really don't feel like someone of Sean Payton's stature or reputation has to lie about anything at this stage. But he was talking about how he was already trying to move up for Patrick Mahomes, and Andy Reid took him. And it is possible that Sean Payton and Andy Reid were the only 2 people that knew or felt, nobody knew, but felt like Patrick Mahomes, what was going to be what he is. Otherwise, everybody would have took him at number 1. The Jets, or I think the Jets had the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, they took. No, the number 1 overall was for
who had the number 1.
I'm gonna look it up right now. 2017 draft.
That was Cleveland. No. Yeah, I think it was Cleveland, and they took Myles Garrett.
Let me double check.
He was drafted in 2017, I believe.
Yep, you're correct. Myles Garrett, and then Mitch Trubisky. Unfortunately, the Bears took him at 2.
Sorry, that wasn't part of this, but
opening up old wounds, I see.
But yeah, I mean, if Cleveland had any clue, he would have drafted. So the fact that Sean told this story on, I think, the Rich Eisen show, or no, I think it was Colin Cowherd's show when he took that year off. I was like, okay, well, if that story is true, then I feel really good about Sean Payton moving up to get somebody, especially if it's somebody like Caleb Williams, who's been compared to Mahomes. I just hope that it's not one of those cases where you're so like, there are very few times in life you can be that right as the Chiefs were on Mahomes. To think that like, oh, this is kind of like the Mahomes thing. It's like that might happen once every 5 decades. So I think that it's just going to be the case. It's like shit in one hand and wish in the other, and see what fills up first. So but I do trust him at the same time, and I'm willing to go through that process. And because I trust him as an evaluator. I do think he could make a mistake though, and that's also true. So it depends what we have to give up, and a good gauge of that is what the Bears received last year from the Carolina Panthers, which is a star player, a first round pick, and then next year's first round pick, and then a second, and probably maybe a third.
Yeah.
And
Or
that's
like a fifth or something.
Yeah, it's a lot of shit, man. It's a lot of shit.
Banking
So
on one guy for your franchise, it's a lot.
it's a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
coming from a guy that hasn't had a first round pick in 2 years because of the Russell Wilson trade,
Mm-hmm.
I really do feel like we're in no position to give away first round picks. We just got these back.
Yeah.
And if we don't start using these, we are going to get beat because we're just there's other teams are more talented. Simple. So, it's exciting. It's very exciting, but it's also like, oh God, if this doesn't work, are we ever going to get out of this? But the thing is, if he doesn't want to go with Russ and we have to pay him all this money, we have to draft a rookie quarterback. There's nobody else that we can get that will be as cheap as a rookie contract. And I feel like that's the way Sean's looking at it, is like, we either go with Russ and we're, going to win around 9 to 10 games, maybe tops, or we draft a rookie quarterback that could fail, but he could turn our whole franchise around. So I see both sides of it. And if that's what Sean thinks he has to do for us to get back to the playoffs and maybe contend for a Super Bowl, then I'm for it, because at this point, what we've been doing hasn't been working. Drafting quarterbacks in the 5th round, 7th round, 1st round, Brock Osweiler, like drafting these Drew Lock, like we maybe the right guy's at 2 and not at 17 or 30 or day 2. Maybe you actually once in a while have to stop trying to, get lucky at the thrift shop, and you have to go to Macy's and buy a brand new. Like, that just might be what has to happen.
Yeah. And you say that too with kind of saying that, getting a rookie quarterback and saying, yeah, he might turn out to not be great, but at least he's on a rookie deal. Similar to what the Bears kind of did with Justin Fields, was we started him his second year. We started to build around him with like DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, running backs, right? Like some wide receivers we get through trading. Unfortunately, Chase Claypool didn't work out, and he hasn't worked out since ever. Fuck that guy. But
I knew that was gonna
that was gonna flow on in there. But it is true, like you don't spend a lot on a quarterback, and in the first 4 to 5 years, you know who that guy is, with or without weapons. You know what I mean? So it's actually like, it is the cheaper option instead of going with Russ for the rest of his contract, and still trying to build around in a thrift shop type of way, like you're saying, with weapons. Because then it's like, well, fuck, we're tied to this guy, and this guy's taking up a majority of our money. So, like, can we ever get out of this is a great question.
Oh, you said rat, Bill. I thought he was making a funny. I thought he was saying you could probably get Riddler from Atlanta, the Falcons, for a second or third, and I thought it was hilarious. Right? Yeah, from Oklahoma.
Yeah, not sure how he'd get along with Sean, though. No, not at all. But it is an interesting thought to kind of like you said, like, how much longer are we going to kind of be in these like bargain quarterback type of situations, instead of finally just going for the fucking kill and getting our guy? Like, how much longer?
Justin Fields even, was a quarterback that fell. And who were the quarterbacks drafted, like number 1 in that draft? Was it Trevor Lawrence?
It's Trevor Lawrence. It was Zach Wilson. It was Trey Lance. Before Justin Fields, I believe. Yeah.
Crazy that Zach Wilson and Trey Lance went before Justin Fields.
And you know what's even crazier? That Patrick Mahomes was picked 10th. Deshaun Watson was picked 12th.
Deshaun Watson
was picked 12th.
Not in the same draft.
In the same draft as Mahomes, yeah. because those were like the three quarterbacks.
No.
Those were the graphics that always came up with the Bears. Was Mitch Trubisky was the first quarterback taken off the board, then Patrick Mahomes at 10th, then Deshaun Watson at 12th. And then they would put up all of their career stats side to side. And I'm sitting there like, we could have gotten Mahomes or Deshaun Watson, obviously before all the Deshaun Watson shit.
What did I'm having like a mental breakdown right
earlier. Now. Isn't that insane to you?
It's insane to me that Zach Wilson and Deshaun Watson have been in the NFL for the same amount of time.
No, not Zach Wilson. I'm saying Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, not Zach Wilson.
I was like, I don't know what's happening.
You're like, who are you? What I'm saying is like, it's crazy that like Mitch Trubisky was the second overall pick when you had Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson there.
Yeah, what's up with that? And wasn't he a North Carolina guy?
North Carolina guy, played like 13 games in college, was 23 years old.
So do you trust Drake May?
No, I don't. And that's just the Mitch Trubisky effect. That's all that is. I feel
because
bad
look at
for
CJ Stroud, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, he broke the, you know, everybody is different, but you do have to look at like who was coaching them and trends. Yeah. You know, just like our job, you know, our old job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not, you got to look at trends and you got to see why these things are happening. And, but yeah, to just, that is like kind of very generalizing. Like you went to UNC, no. Like we
no, 100%. You're correct because Drake May's,
but it's a little bit there.
Quarterbacks that's out there. Yeah, it is definitely a little bit there.
I feel that way too. Like if we move up to 2, it's probably not Caleb Williams. It's probably Drake May. So I think about Trubisky, right? It's like one way or another, like Denver and the Bears will continue to find weird ways to connect. It's like, we're going to trade up like with you and maybe draft another North Carolina guy. And based on how that worked out for you guys, I think we should pivot from that and not go down that road. Learn from your mistakes.
Oh God. Well, it's always fun to speculate, but the best part is that you and I are both the fans of the Bears and Broncos, and we are able to connect those dots and be like, why the fuck are they the same team?
How does it? Yeah, it's like how do these things even happen?
I don't know, dude. I wish I knew so I could stop
the last
them.
Thing. True. The last thing I'll say is, if any trade going up the board involves losing Patrick Surtain, I'm out, and it's that simple. Like
I was gonna say, yeah,
that is something that I'm totally not on board with. And a lot of if you look at mock drafts, a lot of mock drafts have the way the board falls is that nobody's going to pick a corner potentially until Denver, and they're looking at getting the top corner. I mean, these are just mock drafts, but it's just fun to think about. Like if Denver drafted the best corner in this year's draft, and he also went to Alabama. I can't remember his name right now, but we had 2 of, you know, number 1. I mean, that would be probably immediately the best, if not top 2 or 3 best DB rooms in the country. So to think we might not even go quarterback, it's like, it bothers me a little bit to even think about it. Like, oh, we're just gonna run it back, aren't we? You know.
And that was one of the points I was gonna make. I was like, wait, wouldn't you rather have a rookie cornerback because of how good they've come out? Devon Witherspoon this year, Sauce Gardner last year. But I'm like, no, the direction Denver and the Broncos need to go, and I'm sure you would agree with this, is getting that quarterback. You don't need to give up a corner that's already elite. You need to go offense. So even if you do give up Surtain for a quarterback, okay, but that leaves a huge gap there. You can't draft a day 1 starter cornerback. You can't. Your second, third round, maybe these guys will come out, you know, looking a lot better, but you have a solid cornerback there already. Why trade him? Like these guys are coming out ready from college, but you are not going to get a Surtain day 1 starter in the second or third round, in my opinion. I don't think so.
But and the problem is that you lose your first round pick. Like by
Exactly.
losing Surtain, you lose your first round pick, so you're not really building on anything. You're not,
Yeah.
and that's how teams are supposed to evolve. Where it's like, wow, if you have 3 great drafts in a row, you can have a whole new team. But yeah, it's like not only would you be throwing away next year's first round pick,
Mhm.
but which is already a terrible thing, but you're also throwing away 3 years ago first round pick. So
Yeah.
when you add it
Yeah.
all up, you're getting rid of, 2 different, sometimes in some cases 3 different first round picks for one guy is Patrick I mean, look at the Seahawks first round picks that they used from the Wilson trade. They got Devin Witherspoon, they got JSN, they
Yeah.
got Kenneth Walker,
Yep.
they got, who did they
There's a
draft in the
couple other people. I think they traded one of them for like a starter that they have now. He's been in the
Yeah.
league for a while, I think, something
I
like that.
mean,
Yeah.
but that's like a very tangible way of seeing like all of your assets, what they can become.
Yeah.
Like those are
Exactly.
all of our players that we should have on our team, but
Yep.
instead they're over there because of Russell Wilson. And
Mhm.
unfortunately it didn't work out. So yeah, I mean,
Now we're
little, we'll see what happens. Like you said, especially as we get closer to the draft. We're not even past the Super Bowl yet. So I mean, there's a lot that could happen. Justin Fields and the Raiders potentially, I'm hearing maybe some kind of move will be made
Ooh.
there. The one I am seeing, and then we'll move off this, but this would be the Raiders get Justin Fields and a 2025 6th-round pick. The Bears would get the number 77 overall, a 3rd-round pick, a 2025 3rd-round pick that becomes a 2nd-round pick if Fields plays 75% of the snaps, and becomes a 1st-round pick if the Raiders make the playoffs in
Ooh,
2025.
wow. Wow.
So there's definitely a lot of conversations that are about to be happening.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we'll be on them.
And just talking about all this, man, gets me so excited for the offseason, because the offseason can be as exciting as the regular and postseason.
Oh yeah.
It's just without football. It's just more speculation, more names being tossed around, franchises literally changing in the span of a few tweets. So
You would
it's
draft Caleb
insane.
Williams if that happened, though.
I would, and I think they're going to.
Oh,
I think
no,
they're
they
going to.
100%.
Yeah.
If they move off Fields, they're drafting Caleb Williams.
No, I think regardless of the speculation, that's exactly what the Bears are going to draft Caleb Williams. The Bears are going to draft Caleb Williams. I think with Shane Waldron coming in, all these other offensive people coming in with the hires that the Bears have just made, I think Ryan Poles is leading with, we're drafting Caleb Williams. Do you want to come and be a part of this? Yes or no? Shane Waldron, we saw what he's done with Geno Smith. Yes, we have a lot of the same coaching staff on the defensive side and Eberflus, obviously, but the offensive side, completely brand new. You guys get to formulate an entire, your entire own, God damn it, what's the word? Identity, offensive identity. Thank you, with Caleb Williams, and I think they're going to move off Justin Fields. I really do.
Well, if they do, then of course the Denver Broncos are going to acquire Justin Fields, because that is just how life has been working. And I have no doubt in my mind, if they draft Caleb Williams, Justin Fields will be a Bronco next year, which is awesome because I wanted Justin Fields.
I know you do.
Surtain, so somehow we could get them both. That would be
and
great.
It's another little wrinkle that the Bears and the Broncos have.
Would you cheer for him in Denver?
I will cheer for Justin Fields for the rest of his career. I will cheer for Justin Fields the rest of his career.
That's big. That's big.
Yeah, he got 2 different coaching staffs, 2 different offensive coordinators in his 4 years in Chicago. Yeah, he got the shit end of a stick. So
we want Fields. What about all those fans? I'm just saying. It means something when the entire stadium is letting the front office know that they want Fields, and I do think Fields works, so I feel like it's a win-win. But
how many times have we said if fans were the GM, we'd have nothing?
But we've seen the splashes. There's greatness in there.
We've seen splashes for sure.
Unlock it.
I agree, but we're keeping Eberflus, unfortunately, and I don't know if that's going to be the guy, but we will see.
We'll
Other
see.
than that, though, let's move on to Kyle, the Chives. The Chives with Kyle, Championship Sunday edition.
All right, so my well done.
Thank you.
It works. Your timing is impeccable.
It works.
So just some news going around the league. So the Titans are expected to hire Ravens defensive backs coach Dennard Wilson or Denard Wilson as defensive coordinator. So Titans are getting a brand new defense coordinator. It's a huge deal. It's a big three. Quentin Johnson for the Chargers says he's due for a breakout in 2024.
Yes, he is.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah. Micah Parsons hopes Cowboys acquire players they're missing. We didn't do that this year. So he's being a little bit vocal about what he wants them to do as far as attacking free agency. He said, I'm 24 years old. I've been in the league 3 years and I've kind of seen it all. Shut up. No, you haven't. I hope that we go all in. I hope that we go out and get the players that we're missing. Yeah, like the Dolphins did. Okay, a couple more hires. This is a big one. The Packers hire Boston College head coach Jeff Hafley as next defensive coordinator. This is kind of a cool story because Hafley was doing a really good job in Boston College. It was where was it? I think 2019. He accepted the top job at Boston College, and then he did really well, and they offered him an extension. Here it is.
Really?
He had some quick success in his time at Boston College, going 6-5 in 2020 and 6-6 in 2021, earning an extension to stay with the Eagles through 2026. But since that extension, things have been taking a downward turn. The Eagles finished 3-9 and just barely managed to return to bowl eligible status with a 6-6 record, despite playing a schedule with a strength ranking 76 out of 133. So Hafley was on the hot seat entering this year. And instead of leaving his fate to the unpredictability of college football, especially with the transfer portal, the coach is going to take this opportunity to be the defensive coordinator in Green Bay, where I think you could make a serious case that Green Bay could emerge as a really good team based on what they did this year. So think about it. You're on the hot seat at Boston College. You know, imagine you get off the phone with Green Bay, you go talk to your wife, and you're like, I'm going to be a defense coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, and if we win a Super Bowl, I'm probably going to end up being a head coach in the next 6 years. Like, could you imagine going from on the hot seat of Boston College to real aspirations, like very tangible possibilities of having maybe a head coaching job in the next decade? I mean, so cool for him. I love the story.
Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. Joe Barry, it was time for him to go. Yeah. So that'll be a cool little story to watch. And then we talked about the Seahawks and McDonald and Texans offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick, quarterbacks coach Gerard Johnson staying in Houston after taking interviews.
Wow.
So a lot of movement going on around the league right now. Jerry Jones said he's all in on 2024. Don't discount hanging around the rim. I don't really know what that means. But it's probably just not, my generation. It's probably an old saying that I'm not familiar with. But
probably a boomer thing.
I've actually been getting into a lot of Bill Maher, and he always says these references. Like he's sitting in a chair and he's like, there's a burn hole in it. And he was like, I was at the Playboy Mansion with this guy and he was smoking a cigarette and it burnt a hole in it. And he said his name. I can't remember his name. He was like, you know what's so sad is that that's the kind of person that kids, should know, and nobody knows who he is. So I YouTubed him immediately, and he was like a 1940s philosopher that did a bunch of LSD, and he
Yeah.
would like come do these like speeches where he would talk about the meaning of life and stuff. And he's
Yeah.
right. The shit is really good. Like, it's funny
I
how
gotta
much
find out what
smarter.
that is.
No, I'll send it to you. Yeah, it's funny
Please
how
do.
like sometimes it does appear that we're getting dumber. Like, when you listen to like older people talk, it's just so much.
You,
It feels so proper, and the words are different. Their
you
vocabulary is more
yeah.
expanded.
It's just like it's ridiculous how like sometimes things like are way in the past have been foretold, and you think of it, you're like, oh, that's hilarious, and then you're like, oh wait, that's happening. Idiocracy. Have you ever seen Idiocracy?
No, no.
That's a movie that's super low key. It was a super low key movie when it came out. One of the, it was really funny. It was really like, that's never gonna happen. That's not our society. We're better than that. And then there's like little things you look at and you're like, oh shit, those are happening today.
Yeah, dude, and that
It's
was like
crazy.
Bill Maher's special adulting. He
Mhm.
talks about that where he's like,
Wait,
we
Bill Burr, right?
learn. No, Bill Maher.
Bill
Bill
Maher.
Maher. You don't know who Bill Maher is?
Oh, Bill.
This guy.
Yeah, yeah. Now I know you're talking about. Yeah.
Um, he that special. It's on HBO. You should definitely check it out. But he talks about how like we learn. Like he
Mhm.
talks about like 20 years ago we used to roll our windows down and throw shit out the window, just fucking chuck it, and then
Like bags of
there's
McDonald's out the window.
yeah, and then he's like, and then there was this Native American commercial where he was like crying because we were destroying the land, and we stopped doing it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that we continue to evolve, and sometimes for the worse, sometimes for the better, but
A little bit of both. A little bit of
a
both.
little bit of
Depends how we
both.
go.
We're definitely better at computers.
We're totally better at computers, and I like this one here by Bill, another Bill that we always like to talk about. Now for something completely different. A priest, a minister, and a rabbit walk into a bar. The rabbit says, "Wait, I think I may be a typo." It's a rabbi, Kyle. It's a rabbi. It's a typo. It's not rabbit.
Oh,
It's rabbi. I'm gonna leave that one up for you guys to check out because it was good. It got
oh,
Kyle. It got Kyle.
if you would have been like, I'm not going to give you the answer to it,
You'd have been just sitting there.
we'll talk about it on our next episode. I would have come into the next episode like haven't slept, black circles around my eyes. Like, dude, I can't figure it out. I'm so glad that you helped me.
Bill, thanks for that one. Thanks for that one.
Marty,
But
I agree. I like how Bill Maher. I like this Bill Maher.
yeah,
I
I
agree.
liked him. Late Night with Bill Maher, whatever that is, that show he has on HBO.
It used to. I
What is
thought
it
he
called?
wanted to name it "Keeping It Real," and they were like,
Real Time.
"Real
With Bill
Time." That's what
Maher.
it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, he said
I
he
enjoyed it.
talks about that in a podcast where he's like, I wanted to call it "Keeping It Real." Or I think it was it was an interview on his
Yeah,
Club Random, and
yeah.
he was like, the producers were like, "Too black," and he was
Oh
like,
my
"What? What
god!
does that even mean?"
I
It,
what? That's a little too much. What I was gonna say was I like how he's able though to kind of bring different point of views to one
yeah,
table and be able to have a conversation. You're not going to agree with that person, but at least you are able to have a conversation and be like, this is why I don't agree with you and this is why you don't agree with me. Let's talk about it. And yes, there's some shouting. Yes, there's some like shit like that, like you don't know what the fuck you're talking about type of moments, but regardless, you get both sides of the table there. You know what I mean? So I enjoyed that.
totally. And I think that's something that's kind of missing. So anybody that is like that, I'm a
Yeah.
huge fan of, because I actually, honestly, I probably listen to more people that, I don't agree with everything about them, but I enjoy that they have that personality trait. And, as but the world is just so like, you got to be all in. And it's like, where we meet in the middle, that's really where we grow. Like, oh, that's where we have, meaningful discussions, and we can walk away from them, being like, okay, I'll take that, I'll leave that. I don't like when he talks about this. I like that, you can shuffle through it, and it just feels like, wow, this is an actual person. He doesn't just side with everything that he's supposed to say. There's actually a human being in there. And it was awesome. It was awesome.
And I think you gain that because Kyle and I were both in the military. Kyle and I don't agree on everything. Kyle and I also were around people all the time who we did not agree with on a lot of shit.
Yeah.
But the thing is, here's Kyle and I doing a podcast, being really good friends, and still being able to care for like other people that we don't agree with. You know what I mean? Like there'd come times in the military where you'd be like, nah, we need to stop this, or hey man, let me help you out. Hey, let me help you out here. Let me do this. Let me talk to you. We don't have to agree on everything. But the thing is, we knew we were human beings, and we knew there was something that brought us together. And that's all. And that's what we took out of it. That's exactly what we took out of it.
And that's why he said he started Club Random, because he was like, there's so many people that you would get along with so much if you just didn't talk about politics. Exactly. And he goes, and it's crazy when you're a kid, it was like, you didn't talk about politics. You didn't talk about God or religion. Those are the two things that you didn't talk about. You didn't know what your neighbors believed. It was private. And he's like, nowadays, everybody, wants to talk about it so much. So he's like, I'm starting this podcast because I want to talk to people about other things. There's so much more to discuss. And then it's funny, every episode's like 40% political.
Of course. It has to eventually get there.
He can't help himself. Yeah. But he's like smoking pot and drinking the whole time. It's awesome.
Love it. I love those very laid back shows. And I think that's what we are going to create with the Only Football podcast. But so you guys make sure to stay tuned because we got a lot of cool stuff going. But I want to end it off here with this one for the road by Bill. I bought some shoes from a drug dealer. I'm not sure what they were laced with, but I've been tripping all day. And with that, I'm out. I love it, Bill. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Everybody who joined us today, make sure to drop a like on the video, share, subscribe. We are over 600 subscribers now and growing.
Wait, don't leave yet, Bill.
Don't leave yet, Bill. Don't you dare leave yet, Bill. We're growing by the day. Kyle, what you got?
So Bill told me that my Twitter was unnecessarily difficult, but he was laughing about it. And I thought about it for the last 8 days. And then finally yesterday I was like, can I change my Twitter name? And I found out I could. And I changed it to something that I think people will find a lot easier.
Oh no.
NFL with Kyle.
Hey, I like that. I love that.
So hopefully people don't just hear FTBLONLY. Hopefully people will actually listen, because I feel like every time I say it.
You misspelled NFL.
What are you talking about?
I'm just kidding.
Dude, I put a lot of thought into this. There's no way.
Bill said way better, and I think so too. So go make sure to follow us on X at And Now Rick. My name hasn't changed, and at Only Football KR. Kyle, what's that brand new name? They could go follow you on X.
NFL with Kyle.
All one word.
All one word. NFLWIT. I should still spell it.
Spell it out for Bill. Just for Bill.
I used to do that when I would want to fuck with people on the phone, and they would be like, what's your phone number? And I would be like 904 8022
3. Yeah. They're like, I gotta start all over now.
Okay, 94
90 and then 4.
They're like 904. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever cadence you want to go with. I don't give a shit.
360.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys again so much. Please drop a like. Please drop a subscribe. Let your friends know about the Only Football podcast. We're going into season 3, and we got one more game to go. We got one more episode this week, and then we got a couple next week with hopefully some guests. We're going to be talking Super Bowl storylines, getting predictions. It's going to be a great week prior to the Super Bowl. So make sure to stay here with us at the Only Football Podcast. Bill, every time I would search for Kyle, I'd struggle. For real.
Struggle's
Kyle, always a pleasure, man. Always a pleasure. It's getting to the final game, but it's always a great time here on the Only Football Podcast with you, Kyle.
Who are we going to have? Find out in a couple days.
Let's go.
See ya.